Hi, everyone. Welcome to this next installation of the PODS trainings. I'm joined here today by Mike Rhoda, who is one of our past PODS facilitators. He's joining us today just to share a little bit about his experience with implementing PODS and any thoughts that he has to share with you guys as you move forward to implement this yourself. So Mike, if you could just share with us a little bit about your experience going through PODS. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Pods was absolutely amazing. I think from when I first started, from getting the manual at first, it seemed overwhelming at first, as like, oh my God, all this has to be done. But first and foremost, the manual is super, super helpful with everything. It's truly a step by step on everything. It really plays an integral part on how to facilitate your groups on a step by step basis. And then, of course, you're going to find your way of tweaking things, throughout the program. But that's something that's been really been good because we are very supported by you, Hannah, and your team there as well, which was awesome. I was blessed to have an amazing pods group. That from the beginning they had talked about a lot of their struggles that they had as far as like social anxiety, as far as not really being independents. And throughout the whole entire process, you can see the individuals grow. Just from being, participating in the collective meetings that we had, which I think was great because it really took it to the next level. One thing that I really stressed was collective meetings with the individuals, bringing the group back in together with each other, letting them have time to grow independently, but by also bringing them back and figure out what the successes were, what the barriers were, what are some of the challenges that they had. During our collective meetings, we really brainstormed a lot about those things, but I was able to use like post-it boards to a whiteboard to really like document everything, so they can see right in front of them what everything was about. Um, and we really did talk about group participation throughout those meetings. And again, it was nice to see them grow from people that were really quiet and shy at first to now becoming true individual leaders, throughout the group.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I do have one question about something you mentioned. You mentioned that at the beginning of the program, a lot of people talked about experiencing social anxiety. When people brought that up, how did you respond to that and support people through that?
It was nice because we talked about like where we first started and getting here today. That they went out of the box and really showing up today and figuring out what's about the program. And some of the individuals, would not have been that way. So it's a good way for me to let them know, hey, look, there's a chance that you can develop friendships on here. There's a way you can develop some other camaraderie to get out of the house a little bit more.
Mhm.
But what really helped us too is that as we were building up the program, we started talking about things that they may be able to get out of the program. There were no guarantees, but the choice was theirs if they wanted to come to the collective meeting or not. So those individuals just coming to the meeting by them, by themselves was just a huge step for their own personal recovery. And then what amazed me is that some of those individuals that were the shyest at first became the true team leaders, which was absolutely amazing and something that I really, am thankful for. I was blessed. I do get some credit, for the groups as well. But you know what? When you lay down the foundation, they really they took this by storm and they just really ran with it, which was nice. They were able to develop like so many skills, as far as their independence throughout the program, working together. They had challenges. There were some arguments that happened, but you know what? They were really able to brainstorm together and figure out what works best for the group.
That's awesome.
Um,
One thing that you mentioned was laying the foundation and laying the groundwork at the beginning of the program. Can you tell us a little bit about how you laid that foundation of promoting group independence and community participation?
yeah, what was nice is that at first when you have new people together, there's silence. And there's okay, well, who's going to talk, who's not going to talk, who's just going to be shy sitting in the back of the room. One thing I used a whiteboard, and I also use the large post-it notes to put things up on the board, and I would wait for their participation in there as I would ask some of the questions. But some of the documents that were handed out, like the learning how to become new friends, and the other paper that was given really helped facilitate a lot of the conversations. We did have, an individual that was like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. And that's okay as well at first because they didn't know where to take the paperwork. But at the end, they're answering all the questions. They're getting involved with a lot of the communication, and it's really asking those open-ended questions to get participation throughout the collective meetings.
That's a great idea. Thanks for that.
And the one thing that was nice too, again, along the process is also, again, the recurring meetings was gathering the feedback, not just for, with all due respect, not just for Temple University, but for those individuals as well, to see their process and to see where they've struggled, to see where some of their barriers were, and see how they overcame them. The one thing I will say is that I don't think there was one barrier that this group was not able to really not resolve on their own without my involvement. They knew I was available if need be. Even like when I went out to go see them, bowling was the biggest thing for this group. But they've researched like on their own after laying the foundation by saying, "Hey, look, I'm not going to do this. I'm along for the ride, just like everybody else was at first." But they really laid the foundation by calling places, figuring out what the financials are with everything, figuring out logistics as to where they can schedule it at, how they're going to get there. So they really put a lot of the groundwork in themselves just by giving them the framework from what's in the manual.
So it sounds like you really emphasized from the beginning that you were there to support, but you weren't going to be looking up those things for them so that they would have the chance to become more independent and learning how to overcome those barriers.
100%. And again, I told them, like, if you were stuck, by all means, that's the reason why we have the collective meeting, is to figure out, okay, where are we stuck? Why are we stuck? Is there anything else that we may have not looked at? And that happened the first meeting. They found a place, they couldn't figure out transportation or schedule wise. So actually one of the individuals, because they weren't really communicating too much, created a text chat for the entire group. And so that's how they were able to communicate with each other. And it was really a blessing. And I know the group still meets every so often today as well. And this has been a year and a half, possibly later, that they still go out and do meet with each other. I mean, they go over each other's houses. They're calling each other for the holidays. It's just, they go to gym together. I mean, so promoting that physical wellness with everything. So it really ties in the physical wellness and the mental health as well. So it's absolutely been a blessing. When they're bowling, the one thing I want to talk about too is that, we talk about like how teamwork really does involve a lot. It's like when I went to go visit them twice on the bowling, that they did, the bowling outings that they have. What was great is that they just didn't stick to their lane only. They used a lot of tools that we talked about in our training, in the collective meetings, outside in the community as well. So it was great to see them, like, as somebody would throw a strike, they're sitting there high-fiving each other. If somebody would miss something, they would like console them. They would try to offer some support. Of course, they'd also tell them how to fix it too. But it was also nice to see them talking with other people in the alley as well. So from being as shy as most of them were when they first came out, they were like superstars in a bowling alley when I walked in there, and just seeing them talk with everybody, and building new friendships, which was really, really important. It was so nice to see their face light out when someone would just say, hey, just make a name up. Hey, Bob, hey, how are you today? And it was just absolutely wonderful to see that.
That's a really great story, Mike. Thanks for sharing that. I think that really highlights an important part of pods, right? Is that people have the opportunity to build friendships with people who are in pods, but also build connections with people in the wider community, right? By them going to the bowling alley on a regular basis, they were very intentional about building connections with other people who were regulars at the bowling alley, which is wonderful. So that's great to hear. You mentioned earlier on in the conversation about barriers and how the participants in the PODS program were able to figure out ways to overcome all those barriers on their own for the most part. How was that for you as a facilitator? When you first started out, was it hard for you to kind of take a step back and let them figure those barriers out? Talk me through that process.
So of course, in our role, we always want to fix things for everybody. We really do. But in the ultimate end, like, what are they going to achieve by us doing everything for them? So I saw the struggles that they had, but the one thing I always try to prioritize is using that motivational interviewing to figure out, okay, the who, what, when, where's, and why. And again, we can fix it for them, but it's not going to achieve anything. It was great to see them I don't want to say struggle, but it was great to see them have these moments of, okay, what do we do next? And when they did that, I would actually just redirect them to the other members of the group, and they were able to work things out. I mean, as far as like scheduling, nobody talked about, okay, well, I have work that day. Then right away they were like shut down for us, like, okay, well, we definitely can't do it that day. But maybe asking open up ended questions like, well, what time do you work till? Or, is it near the place that we're looking at going to? They were really able to, I was able to talk with them about the other questions, the who, what, when, where, and why, to open up a dialogue with them to figure out, okay, well, how can we make this work? As far as, finances, many of our individuals, are on a strict, financial budget. Um, and they called many places and they were getting frustrated first, like, oh my God, it's like 35 bucks a person, $40 a person. I can't do that. But they didn't give up. And that was the best part. They didn't give up and they were able to find like $1 bowling night. So it fit in everybody's budget. Sometimes people were, short of money. Other people would help them out and like let them borrow the money and they got paid back. So it's like you're working on transportation, you're working on community resources, you're working on budgeting, you're working on social communication. It's almost like the quadfecta together.
That's a perfect example, Mike. So thank you for that. I know that you and I had talked in the past about that barrier of finances, and you had a specific story that you shared with me in the past about a participant and how you helped them budget for pods. Is that something that you
Mhm.
can tell us more about?
Absolutely. So the individual I was working with at first really struggled and was really hesitant on wanting to participate in the bowling night. And so we talked on the side and we talked about, okay, well, what are the concerns that you have? So we talked about, well, well, I just don't have the money. I don't have enough money to pay for my transportation getting there, which, if I take an Uber, that's gonna cost me 20 bucks. If I go there, bowling's gonna cost me like $2, $3. Bowling shoes like another like $3. So we figured out ways, number one, what about having communication with other individuals in the pod to see who can provide your transportation? Right there, that could save you $20 directly off of that. Is there something else, another activity you may do during the week that is taking up this budget as well, that you may be able to maybe differentiate yourself and maybe put that money aside for the bowling? At first, there was hesitancy with it about it first. Um, but then they're like, you know what? This is more of what I want for myself. I want to get out. I want to be able to go out and meet with somebody. So he had to weigh the pros and cons on what he wanted to do, and he made the choice at first directly for himself to put that money aside, budget it, put it in a small envelope so that he didn't have to touch it, and he knew that that was his weekly money to go bowling with his friends that he called it. And that was the best part too. They weren't looking at each other as just like new people. They truly developed friendships, calling each other friends, leaning on each other for advice. I was truly blessed with an amazing pods group that we had.
So thanks for sharing that with us, Mike. Was there
Yeah.
anything else that you wanted to share with us today?
I think some of the things that pods offers is not only basic and not only like a curriculum, but it really does change lives. I've had individuals that were living in a group setting, transition to independent living, and it was nice for them to already have natural supports in place from developing them through the pods program. They didn't know anybody, and that's the reason they first came out to the pods. Said, hey, you know what? I'm back. I'm in a new community. I want to meet new people, but I'm nervous. I have my social anxiety. That will not allow me to do anything. But going through all this, meeting all the people along the way, it really opened up a lot for the individuals in the pods group. And like I said, a lot of them still talk today. A lot of them are getting together for the holidays. They go to the gym together still. Everything that they've done, they're still doing together. Summer concerts. They went out and they got together about like buying like $5 tickets for each other. Some person had money that week. Somebody said, hey, if you want to come out, I'll take care of you this week. You take care of me next week. So it's not just about getting together and having a meeting and doing paperwork and everything. It really changed a lot of people's lives. One thing as a facilitator too, don't be afraid of constructive criticism as far as getting feedback from the participants. They may not agree with the way some things are done, and that's okay. But just having that conversation with them as to, again, the who, what, when, where, and whys really opened up their eyes to wanting to do some of the paperwork as far as developing friendships. That sparked conversation with people. I was like, okay, I never really thought deep down about why I want to develop a friendship. I never really, doing the other collaborative paperwork, it really opens up their eyes to see, okay, why am I doing this? And I would
Yeah,
definitely do it again. I can't wait to keep continuing.
cool. That's great, Mike. Thank you. I think you made a really good point about constructive criticism because ultimately this PODS program at your agency is for the participants. And so there might be things that collectively they decide they want to approach a different way than might be outlined in the program. And that's okay because this is for your participants. And so I think Mike's exactly right that that's not necessarily a bad thing that might happen. Cool.
Yeah, I
Anything
definitely
else?
agree. Again, and yeah, and I say like we find new things out along the way too. Again, not everything is going to be okay. You have to do things A, B, C. Is it a phenomenal manual to get you through that? Yes, it is. But sometimes you're going to have those days that are a little bit more challenging, where maybe you need two collective meetings to get that done, or maybe it's just a tougher day where they're just people are just not in the mood to look at this paperwork, and you figure out those barriers together as a group. But most importantly, I can't stress enough is that we can direct them a certain way as far as the training goes, but the participants are truly going to dictate what the pods program is about.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely right that there are guidelines to the program, but ultimately kind of seeing where your participants are at on that day and kind of meeting them there and supporting them through that is kind of the priority, as long as we're keeping the end goal on that community participation, promoting independence, and building social connections.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to bring up as well too. One thing that I did stress to them is that you are going to get out of it what you put into it. Because again, if it's not your cup of tea, that's okay. That's definitely all right. But now that I've seen successes, now I also have a benchmark to show others along the way. Hey, look, this is what I've seen work out as well. And I hope it can do the same for you as well.
Yeah, I think that's great that you are promote or that you did promote that, that you're gonna get kind of what you put into it. I think that's a really good way to approach it. Okay,
Definitely. Thanks.
cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mike, and for your insight. I definitely appreciate you sharing that with us. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Absolutely. No worries.
Bye.
See ya.